rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Wow, the chat lit up over on Rumble, of course, because not too many people actually chat elsewhere, but over on Rumble, man, everything lit up. There is a bunch of stuff going on over there. Hopefully I'll be able to catch up and get to at least one or two of the items. First of all, I just want to say, Fat Paws, good to see you. Glad you're feeling pretty good there. That is absolutely awesome. Congratulations, I guess, are in order for your health. So there we go. Also, too, I've got a couple things on Jack Smith a little bit later on in the program, because to be honest with you, it's really not a lot of detail. But it is there. So it's something that I hope to be able to get to by the end of the show. Let's go ahead and kick everything off. First of all, I have up for tonight. Judge Wild. I have Judge Wild up for the Pledge of Allegiance. So please, if you are of mind, stand, remove your hats, put your hand over your heart, and let's follow along with Judge Wild in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I thank you, Judge Wild, for doing that. If anybody hasn't checked out his program, he broadcasts, I think, like 3 or 4 times a day with different, bunch of different channels, but it's the one that he usually does is called Intelligent Talk with Judge Wild. You can just search up Judge Wild. That's WYLD, Judge Wild, for that. You can check out his little broadcast. He does, little 15-minute things. Nothing as long as and in depth as what this broadcast is, but you can go and check them out. They're all on Rumble, of course. Okay. So tonight's sponsor is the Institute on the Constitution, which was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up, and while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online, or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Check this book out. It's an 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather that wraps around pages that are tear and water resistant. You can also see they don't skimp on materials. This is stitched all the way through the binding into the leather itself. No cheap glue here. This has a 100-year warranty against materials and defects in workmanship. right here, you can return return it to them, and they will either fix it or replace it for free if something comes up during that time. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and of course, my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the internal information can net you your civics badge in scouting. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online to get this non-sharp corner, because they are thick rounded corners, book to pass down to your generations to come. Hopefully they will learn about the Constitution and not just hold it as a, book end or something like that. But you can take it, you can definitely take that and give it over to your liberal friends and watch them try and tear it up. I would love to see that happen. Anyway, go to constitution.americanperspective.online to get yours today. And don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's materials and information too. I thank them for allowing me to be an affiliate. Okay. So, let's go ahead and kind of get some things going here. So first of all, something came out this morning, and it's kind of, well, I mean, it's no surprise to anybody who was actually paying attention to what's going on with it. With what's happening in the world today and what happened in 2020, in particular, between 2019 and 2020 and leading up to the 2020 election. The censorship, or the use, I should say, of non-governmental organizations for the government to attempt to censor speech, i.e. X, i.e. Facebook, i.e., any other social media outlet that was out there. This shouldn't come as any surprise, especially if you were a byproduct or a recipient of that censorship. I was one, a couple of times, but anyway, Meta, and Mark Zuckerberg in particular, wrote a letter to the House Judiciary Committee, and in it, he actually admits, which, this is something that, again, I don't understand why the Supreme Court really didn't really do much with this. Honestly, I wish they would have, because this is just damning evidence right here and right now. This is total damning evidence, and I'm sorry, but I gotta hold up my hand, because I gotta be careful with my gestures. For those that don't know, I have a new camera, and the new camera is gesture controlled. So I have to be careful when I put my hands up and stuff, because certain gestures make it do certain things. And I just happened to notice that the camera was back into gesture mode. So anyway, moving on. So yeah, the thing about it is that this comes about, 3 years too late, honestly. In the grand scheme of things. So this is just disgusting that these people are they're thinking that an apology is going to do something. But anyway, the Meta CEO admits the Biden-Harris administration pressured the company to censor Americans. Mark Zuckerberg says, "I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it." Yeah. So anyway, that's the article, but I want to show you the actual letter, and there's I'm going to read a couple paragraphs to you with it. Here we go. I'm going to use my wonderful new feature, Zoom. Anyway, if you read it right close here, it says, in 2021, senior officials of the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Now, he kind of gives them an out here in this next sentence where he says, ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take the content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. But here's the problem, folks. The federal government is not supposed to do any of this. That's part of what the whole idea of free speech and the First Amendment, okay, is essentially the thing. I mean, realistically, this isn't the way that our government or our freedoms are supposed to work. But what's worse is not just that, it's also down a little bit further in the and I'll see if I can get onto that directly. There we go. Down a little bit further, one paragraph down, he talks about the Hunter Biden laptop. Folks, he says, in a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family in Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. Folks, that itself was enough, based on exit polling and people who have found out about it afterward and said, you know what, if I knew about that before I voted, I wouldn't have voted for Biden. This was factual information that was covered up at the behest of the Biden or the incoming Biden administration. Okay. This was covered up by them because it hurt, or would have hurt, Joe Biden had it come to light. This is the whole New York Post thing where they were talking about, oh yeah, the laptop is all the earmark, and the 51 intelligence officers signing that letter. Well, this has all the earmarks of Russian disinformation. It was factual. It was true. And we now have the House Oversight Committee and Judiciary Committee's report all rolled into one with regards to up to $27 million that Joe Biden and his family took from foreign entities as a result of their influence peddling operation that Hunter Biden was the bagman for. And it was that laptop that really kicked a lot of it off in terms of that information. Now, if that had been able to come to light back in October of 2020, I'm almost 100% certain that the election of 2020 would not have gone the way that it did. I showed you not too long ago, probably in an older episode, we're probably talking about a year ago, maybe, or so. But a survey that was done by people who came out, and roughly 16% of the respondents said that they would have changed their vote had they known about the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, the thing about it is, with that, though, is that if you extrapolate that into 16% of the national vote, okay, assuming that everything holds true, of course, but even if it doesn't, that would be at 16%, that's 4 times the amount in terms of a percentage. That's 4 times the amount that Joe Biden actually won by. Joe Biden won by only 4% of the vote, folks. That's it. It was a close race in 2020. And whatever information would have been gleaned out of that could have tilted the scales in Trump's favor, and we wouldn't have had the Biden-Harris administration, or as I say now, because we all know that Biden is essentially oatmeal brains right now, the Harris-Biden administration. And we wouldn't be in the situation necessarily that we're in today, with the world getting ready to fall down and inflation out of mostly out of reach. But this is the thing. He even admits, Mark even says, it's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. Yeah. It's kind of hard to put the horse back in the barn and to shut the gate when the horse is already gone. Yeah. This guy, I gotta tell you, I mean, this is just horrible. I just can't even understand or begin to understand where these people get off. It's like, oh, I'll do it, and then I'll apologize for it later. Yeah, well, you shouldn't have done it in the first place. And again, keep in mind, I mean, Meta's not the only one. The X-Files kind of showed, meaning after Twitter was bought by Elon, he and Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger, they went and released a whole bunch of files. All of that should have gone in, and the Supreme Court should have smacked the crap out of the Justice Department for doing that, and the Biden administration for doing that. In fact, it technically, I mean, if you really think about it, that is definitely a impeachable offense for sure, because he's violating his oath to the Constitution. Absolutely. All right. Well, water under the bridge. Don't cry over spilt milk, whatever other kind of adage you want to throw in to this particular situation. We have to deal with what's happening today. And even though that happened, I guess the only thing that we can say is just make sure you understand that when you see stuff on the internet, this is a PSA, folks, when you see stuff on the internet, do not take it at face value until you can verify it and corroborate it by, a couple of different sources at a minimum, because this is an egregious act of overreach by our government. And if you think that this isn't going to be the continual process moving forward, if you think that Kamala Harris is not going to carry this on into her administration, should she win in November, well, I got a nice bridge in the middle of the desert that doesn't cross anything that I would love to sell you. Speaking of Kamala and her potential of doing things, where she's talking about doing price caps, she's calling it price gouging, but as I've shown you, price gouging isn't a thing, especially in the grocery line, because grocery store margins are between 1% and 3%, folks. They're even lower than like industry averages across the board. So realistically, we're not even dealing with a price gouging situation, not to mention the fact that price gouging by itself is illegal already. But that being said, that doesn't mean that she doesn't want to pass some sort of a law that is going to put on government-controlled price caps, which, by the way, it's been tried and failed in places like Argentina, Venezuela, Cuba, Soviet Union, and yes, even here in the United States. The Nixon administration attempted it back in the 70s, and yeah, it didn't work, folks. Just doesn't work. It creates shortages. It creates problems with our supply chains. People don't want to make products that they can't make any money off of, and that's exactly what government price caps are going to do. But that being said, apparently there are some Democrats in Congress that are saying the quiet part out loud that they don't support Kamala's nonsense platform. This is in hot air, and oh, I hope this is true, realistically true, if anything. So over a week ago, of course, Harris has tried rolling out an economic agenda. Now, keep in mind, this is just an agenda. This isn't necessarily a policy for the most part. This is just an agenda in terms of what she's going to do. And it very much as she wants to be separated from Biden and Bidenomics, this essentially is kind of warmed over, rehash of Bidenomics. But anyway, there are some Democrats up on Capitol Hill, and Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampell noted that price controls have failed wherever they've been tried, and I've already listed everything out, which, by the way, it's mainly in socialist and Marxist. Her dad's a Marxist. And by the way, you haven't noticed him being around. He hasn't been around much in all of this. But asking Democrats on Capitol Hill, they told Politico, which again, you guys know that's the leftist outlet for, it's the political playbook. You want to know what they're thinking, that's where you need to go and take a look. But the Politico outlet said that they have no intention of passing any federal price control legislation. Furthermore, they're fairly sure that Harris isn't serious about it either. So, yeah. This in the Politico piece. Under pressure to defend Kamala Harris's price gouging plan, some Democratic lawmakers are delivering a quiet message to anxious allies. Don't worry about the details. It's never going to pass Congress. The Harris campaign proposal, unveiled as a part of her first big economic policy speech, has become a focal point for her presidential rival, Donald Trump, and fellow Republicans. Gee, I wonder why. Just demonstrates that she is a Marxist. She is a Marxist economist. She has an economy degree, by the way, and so does her dad. And I think her mom does too, although I'm not 100% sure on that. I know her dad does, and her dad is definitely a Marxist. And this is where she learned it all. So anyway, it continues on that where it says, but such a bill has no chance of passing Congress anytime soon, even if Democrats win the White House and Congress this November. According to 6 Democratic lawmakers and 5 Democratic aides who were granted anonymity, they all have to speak anonymously, because if they don't, they go on record. And when they go on record, then they can be in trouble with their masters. Because again, you know, the whole hive mind kind of thing. But anyway, these people said Democrats in Congress have privately been telling critics that this part of the Harris plan is not viable. Rather, they've argued its messaging tactic, a way to show that she understands food prices remain an economic burden for many Americans and redirect voters' anger about inflation to corporations in a way that progressives in particular have cheered. Yeah. So, yeah. That's kind of a strange tactic to take. I mean, you're attacking, and, you know, Democrats have been doing this a lot. They've been doing this, like, all of their platform, as far as I know, is attacking the very people that fund them. Just like the whole, we need to tax billionaires. Yeah. The majority of billionaires actually fund Democrats. That's what they do. They don't fund Republicans, which is kind of interesting to think about because of the fact that if Democrats are funded by billionaires, and billionaires like, you know, Mark Cuban, Bill Gates, I'm trying to think of Jeff Bezos, just 3 off the top of my head, then why would anybody with any sense, seriously, and this is a common sense question here, why would anyone with any sense believe that the Democrats are going to attack the billionaires like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders always seem to talk about, when it's that they're biting the hand that feeds them? Seriously. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're biting the hand that feeds them because of the fact that they're trying to dupe people who don't ask that critical thinking question, whether or not they want to stay in power, and that's what they're fighting for. That's what they're pushing for. They don't have any intention of going after the millionaires and billionaires. Why? Because half the Democrats in Congress are millionaires. I mean, take a look at Obama. Obama jumped from having literally nothing when he was campaigning all the way up to being worth something like 70 to 100 million. Okay. And Bernie Sanders owning like 3 or 4 different houses, even though he's a socialist. Shouldn't he be handing that out to the people? Yeah. It just doesn't seem to make any sense. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. There is actually a tide that may be turning. There's some indications that there might be some people who are actually waking up and getting what's called red-pilled. Here, but before I get to that article, sorry, I got off. Actually, yeah, let's continue with that. I'll continue with that thought because that's where I was going. there are some people who might be getting red pilled, and this in, ironically, red state. A DNC volunteer finally gets it, says she cannot support Kamala, and she's not sure if she is still even a Democrat. Okay. What I'm about to play you is a post that she put on TikTok. Can't claim anything about its veracity, but I can tell you that what she is saying is very, very true. And I took about a 3-minute video and I cut it down to about a minute and a half. Okay. So let's just take a listen to this young lady. And I do mean young lady. I mean, she is young. Let's go and take a listen to what this young lady says after going and experiencing the joy and love at the DNC.
And at the DNC this week, I felt like I was in a building with the most elite and out-of-touch people in the entire world. It very much felt like, let's just have a huge party and forget all of our problems because the vibes are brat. When I was there, I didn't feel any connection to real America or the place that I come from, which is the Midwest, Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri. I didn't feel any connection to the people that I know right now who are struggling to buy their groceries or to pay their rent. The people who want to know what both candidates are going to do to materially affect change in their lives. And when I was there listening to the speeches, I felt myself feeling mad because I didn't hear anything about the economy. Definitely not in Kamala's speech, and not very much in the others as well. Instead, I heard generic platitudes, things like joy and respect and integrity, and what does that even mean? Let's make the military the most lethal in the world? I thought I was part of the anti-war party. I thought I was part of the party that fought for the underdog, that championed working people. When and how did we just become the party of academia and affluence? That's what we are right now. I don't think I can support Kamala Harris for president. I don't even know if I can call myself a Democrat anymore. I don't know who I'm going to be supporting, but I know it's not her, and for once, I'm not afraid to say it.
So there you have it. From a Democrat worker herself. Now, she says in the video, in a couple of different manners, she says in the video that she is a longtime Democrat volunteer, that she goes through and yeah. Sorry, had to go take care of the trolls. Anyway, I had to take care of a Facebook troll. So anyway, the point that I'm trying to make here is that she claims that she has worked with the Democrat Party. She's been with the Democrat Party. She has helped fundraise for the Democrat Party. And by the way, the part of the video that she cut out, she refers to the fact that a lot of the Democrat politicians and candidates, they were paying much more attention to the rich folks. They weren't going out and doing like the grassroots kind of knocking on doors type of things, but that they were spending a lot of their time calling the rich people. Now, they do admit that, or she did admit, that this is nothing unusual, that, that everybody has to do it. But the thing about it is that she noticed that everybody has to do it, but then they just sort of stopped. They did it, but they never went to bother trying to reach out to essentially the lower, the what would be considered the little people, the ones that were below. And she also described a couple of instances that she experienced where she was surrounded by people who essentially believed themselves to be the elite, and that they were looking down from above on the rest of the people. Folks, this is what the Democrat Party is. The Democrat Party is the party of the elites. They are the ones who sit there and look down their noses at you and say, you don't know what you need. I will tell you what you need. You know, the John Kerrys of the world. You know, we have climate change and climate problems. We are in a climate crisis. And then goes and hops on a freaking private plane. All right. So, yeah, these guys, I mean, the DNC doesn't seem to understand that the people who are out there who are hurting, the ones that they claim are the ones that they care about, they don't seem to care. And I also want to point out, too, there's another moment in the DNC that kind of, I think a lot of people kind of went and snuck by people. In fact, that's what the town hall title or town hall headline reads here. One abhorrent moment from the DNC snuck under the radar until now. And this has to deal with a human rights individual. She's a president of the Human Rights Council, I believe. What is her name? Kelly Robinson. Oh, sorry, it's the Human Rights Campaign. So Kelly Robinson was there making a speech or talking to a group of individuals. Well, here, let's just listen to what she has to say.
We can't just worry about protecting democracy. In this moment, we've got to reimagine it with people that look and love like us at the center. And I think for us right now, it's about reimagining freedom and this American story in a way that is more revolutionary than what our founders actually put down on that little piece of paper, but instead is the type of democracy that is by and for all of the people of this country. That's the opportunity that we have.
Did you catch that? Did you catch that? She was talking about this little piece of paper. This is what the Democrats look upon the absolute greatest document that has ever been crafted in the history of the world with regards to freedom and liberty and the people being in control. It was the first, and as far as, for the most part, the only constitution that has been successful for over 250 years now. I think we're closing in on like 275 or something like that. I've got to do the math. But she talks about the Constitution, this little thing right here, as a piece of paper. It's just a piece of paper. We need to reimagine it. Well, I agree with you in the sense that, yeah, it is just a piece of paper. It's a piece of paper when people like you, like me, do not embody the spirit of the words that are placed on that piece of paper, that piece of parchment paper. When we don't learn about the Constitution, when we don't understand it and live it in our lives, we are the ones that make this piece of paper, this piece of parchment, into the values and the principles that this country was built on. And it's not the values and principles that she is talking about. Well, thanks, Nana. Nana from JJS did the math for me. 2024 to 1776 is 248 years. So we're approaching 250. Thank you for that. See, my Whiskey Warrior P1s that are out there, they all take care of me. But anyway, the point that I'm making, though, is that's exactly what these people think of our Constitution. That's why they don't, not only do they not study it, not only do they not pay attention to things like the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, the writings of the Founding Fathers at the time, the writings that inspired the Founding Fathers at the time, and all of this, they don't care, because to them, it's just a piece of paper. It's just something to be torn up, thrown away, It's not, don't worry about it. It's just a piece of paper with some ink on it. That's it. And yes, 3 Chevy, it is. The Constitution was actually ratified in 1791. So, sorry. 3 Chevy wrote, for those on the audio portion of the program, 3 Chevy only over on Rumble said, but isn't the Constitution later than 1776? And yes, it is. It was actually fully ratified, I believe, in 1791, or maybe it was 1789, somewhere around in there. 1789, 1791, fully ratified. I think it was written in 1789, ratified in 1791. Anyway, you guys got me off track. Here we go, trains. There we go. We're off the track. All right, let's get back on the track. Well, you know, the thing about it is that these people don't seem to understand is that Constitution has held us around for the 240 years or whatever it is that we've been here. And it is definitely one of the things, it is a founding document. And, see, Coco, pick me up right there. Written in 1787, ratified in 1788, and in operation since 1789. So there you go. And it took the place of the Articles of Confederation. So, you know, if I wasn't in my defense, if I wasn't running a program, I would have looked that up. But anyway, sorry. Anyway, moving on. So, you know, this is what these people are doing is they are essentially trying to destroy our republic. And yes, it is a republic. I'm getting a little tired of having a whole bunch of people go out there and try to tell me that we are a democracy. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. Granted, we have some similarities, but yeah. Anyway, the point being, though, is that these people don't care. They literally just don't care. They, as far as they're concerned, the Constitution is just a piece of paper with ink on it, and we shouldn't even be using it. Because as Joe Biden, of course, stated, you know, it isn't a living document. It's a piece of paper. So anyway, he didn't even believe that the Second Amendment was absolute, even though it says, shall not be infringed at the very end. Now, I do agree, okay, before anybody goes off on the deep end on me, I do agree that there is a thing, okay, there is a thing known as the Article 5 operations in order to amend the Constitution. So yes, technically the Constitution can be changed, but it is very difficult to do so, and it's only been done 27 times in close to 200 years, over 200 years. And you can't say that that's an actual even division because the first 10 were all ratified together. So there you go. All right. Shifting gears here really quickly. So you remember that whole thing I talked to you a couple days ago, a couple episodes ago about the Biden administration making changes in order to yes, I just looked at the Rumble chat. I'm not going to repeat it. The Biden administration looks to change some of the immigration regulations in order to try and make it so that you can change the legal status of spouses that are here illegally and allow them just amnesty for them, just immediate amnesty and offers of citizenship. Okay. But the thing about it is that there was, or I even mentioned it at that night, that there were 16 states that were suing the Biden administration for this. And here we go. Right here, Yahoo News, judge blocks Biden administration from granting legal status to spouses of U.S. citizens. See, here's the problem with all of this. And this is the thing that a lot of people just, they can't seem to grasp because they don't have the civics background and knowledge. The Constitution clearly states that Congress, i.e. the legislature, okay, which is made up of two houses, the House and the Senate, they are the ones that create the law. the executive clearly states that that the president, who is the executive, is the one that is the one that enforces the law. Okay. Makes laws in Congress, enforces law in presidency. I don't see where it says the presidency can make up a law. And that's the problem that we have. And this is where the whole idea of the Constitution is abhorrent to anyone who is a Democrat. They don't like playing by the rules. They don't like being locked in, okay, to regulations and guidelines and guardrails and everything that the Constitution stands up for, okay? And so what these people are doing, the Biden administration is just making up law. We've already had the Supreme Court already talk about how regulatory bodies can't just make up laws through that Chevron deference overturn decision. And so here we have an order by a judge, ordered by District Judge J. Campbell Barker, effectively brings a halt to a large immigration program that opened just last week to an estimated 500,000 immigrants living in the U.S. without legal status. While preliminary and temporary, the ruling is also an early blow to one of the two major moves taken by President Biden in June on immigration, which is, of course, a top campaign issue in the 2024 race for president. So it was announced just weeks after another executive action that has greatly curtailed access to asylum at the southern border. The program, known as Keeping Families Together, was announced as a measure to address the plight of some of the undocumented immigrants, aka illegal aliens, who have lived in the U.S. for years in what they consider legal limbo. The policy allows unauthorized immigrants to apply for temporary work permits and deportation protections under an immigrant benefit known as parole. If they are married to U.S. citizens, have lived in the country for at least 10 years, and passed background checks. The program is also open to undocumented stepchildren of U.S. citizens. Those with felony convictions are ineligible for the process. Okay, now, look, it's not that anyone who is in the Republican Party is against legal immigration. We're not against immigrants. We're a nation of immigrants. All we're simply asking is that we have a process in place. You can argue about its merits. You can argue about the length of time, so on and so forth. But the whole point here is follow the process. Get in line. Take the tests. Do the things you are supposed to do in order to gain citizenship in this country legally. That's all that anyone can ask. See, we are also, even though we are a nation of immigrants, we are also a nation of laws. And it is following those laws that makes us who and what we are. We can't just throw away laws just because we think it's inconvenient for us. What needs to happen, honestly, what needs to happen is this needs to go back to Congress. And Congress needs to fashion these laws. If you want these laws to go into effect, if as an executive, if you want these things to go into effect, you've got to talk to the legislature, both houses of Congress, and get them set up properly in that fashion. You can't just go and jump the line for no reason. Anyway. All right. So, Jack Smith. Yes, Jack Smith has reared his ugly head once again. All right. So, just to kind of catch you up, because you may have forgotten, Jack Smith, of course, brought two major court cases against Donald Trump. One was done in D.C., that's Washington, D.C., and the other one was brought, and this is the thing, it was given to a grand jury in Washington, D.C., but then transferred to the court down in Florida, because that's actually where the incident supposedly happened, with the whole thing of the classified documents scenario. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the little nuances of the questions of the court case, but suffice it to say, both cases were held up by a lot of different stuff. Both of them were held up by immunity cases that went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically said, hey, the president, while doing official actions, has immunity. While doing unofficial actions, he doesn't have immunity, he or she, I should say. And in that gray area, it can kind of be talked about by the court system. And so what ended up happening is, in both cases, both of that, they kicked it back. The Supreme Court kicked it back to the lower courts to say, yeah, you guys need to figure this out and come back to us when you do, basically. So what ended up happening is Judge Eileen Cannon, and this is a big key. I can't forget this, but this is a big key. In the immunity case, and this is what really, this is part of the reason why the left is so pissed off at Clarence Thomas, not to mention the fact that Clarence Thomas is probably one of the greatest constitutional Supreme Court justices we have ever had in history. But beyond that, he just tends to stick it to them every once in a while. And so he did. He wrote a concurring opinion in the immunity case that had nothing to do with the actual immunity case itself, but where he calls into question the whole idea of whether or not Jack Smith was constitutionally put into office. And it was that concurring opinion that Judge Eileen Cannon down in Florida basically looked at Jack Smith and said, yeah, guess what? I don't think you were constitutionally appointed. Therefore, you are no longer special counsel. Ergo, you cannot bring these cases. And so she tossed the entire classified documents case in Florida out. But here's the problem. When she did that, she did not state that this covers every court case. And it was probably due to the fact that she felt like she didn't have jurisdiction to do so. So what we ended up with is a split where the DC case, which is under Judge Chutkan, and the Florida documents case, which was under Eileen Cannon, are now in two separate areas of limbo. Now, Chutkan's case had to take the immunity decisions and go back through and look through all of the evidence and try to figure things out. And she put it back on the prosecution, which is Jack Smith, put it back on the prosecution to basically say, hey, you got to figure out if you're going to be bringing charges on this again. Well, he did. He filed them today. He has now filed an updated superseding indictment is the correct term that they use. A superseding indictment, which didn't change the charges, by the way. It didn't change the charges. And so what ended up happening here is it basically just took out a few of the what they labeled as co-conspirators. And supposedly, according to the reports, it actually went to a grand jury. Now, I'm kind of curious as to where the grand jury was. I haven't quite heard that yet, whether or not it was in D.C. or not. Well, wait a minute. This is the election subversion case, so it had to be in D.C. So he went ahead and filed these superseding indictments after filing the appeals court case in Florida. So he's asking the appeals court to reverse the dismissal of the Trump documents case. And this is the one in Florida. So he's asking for an appeals court to reverse that one. Now, I'm telling you, folks, this is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. this whole idea of whether or not Jack Smith was appointed properly in accordance with the appointments and the apportionments clause, because there's two different parts here that are going under the microscope. The first one being the fact that the Constitution, and this Clarence Thomas laid out the entire case very clearly. But the fact is that the office of the special counsel doesn't exist as of right now in any kind of a statute. It doesn't exist in the Constitution either. And so what the Constitution basically says is, here's the offices that we, meaning the Constitution, is going to make: presidency, vice presidency, etc. But it also provided for for Congress to make the other offices as needed by statute. Now, the statute that made or created the office of the independent counsel expired. Okay. So the office of independent counsel expired. I believe it expired in 1999, if I recall correctly. And so therefore the office of the special counsel has no congressional statute behind it. Now, there are some regulations, some, codes and things like that are written by the Department of Justice, kind of defining the office and so on and so forth. But the key here is, and the key question among all of this, is whether or not the office of the special counsel, which is supposed to operate independently from the DOJ, okay, and not be influenced by the DOJ, which means that it should be what is called a principal office. If it's a principal office, it has to be created by Congress. If it's an office that can be created by the Department of Justice, for an example, then that would also kind of have to be defined by the Department of Justice's statute. And that's what's in question here. So this entire thing, I'm telling you, it's going to go before the Supreme Court eventually, provided that Trump doesn't get into office and everything just kind of disappears, which is also the alternative for this entire situation. So anyway, so Jack Smith in one case is like totally not appointed appropriately. In another case, he still can act appropriately, which, by the way, Judge Chutkan, I mean, she could, in theory, even though I know this isn't going to happen, but she could, in theory, basically say, all right, this case, and, this is an opinion, even though it wasn't an official opinion, this is sort of a suggestion by, one of the Supreme Court justices that we could be running into a constitutionality issue here. And, I kind of agree with it. And so, yeah, you're also kicked out of here, but she's not going to do that. She's not going to do that. I guarantee you. Even though she could, but she's not going to. But that's exactly what Eileen Cannon did. And Eileen Cannon, I think, is definitely the one to go as far as that goes. She's really good for that. All right. Something that wasn't in the show notes, which, by the way, most of the articles that I put out and talk about here on the show are in the video description. I have all the links of where I got them, so you can go and grab the links. You can read them for yourself. You can take a look at them for yourself. You can use them as, Democrat, leftist, Marxist people fodder, ammunition or whatever you want. But you can all check that out. It's all in the video descriptions on either Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, or X. All right. So this also came through, and this is another little flip-flop, because we know Kamala Harris flip-flops on everything. She doesn't really have much of a platform. She's just sort of making it up as she goes along. Oh, and by the way, she and Walz have agreed to a CNN interview this Thursday. Okay. This Thursday, they've agreed to an interview. Now, it's not going to be a hard-hitting interview. I'm going to tell you this right now. It's with Dana Bash, who is a sycophantic follower of CNN, leftist politics. So don't expect anything exciting out of this interview, because it ain't going to happen. But at least she's going to be sitting down for an interview. Oh, and too, I also forgot. I saw, at least according to Trump, they have finally agreed on the debate rules, and nothing, by the way, nothing is other than, I think the mics are going to be maybe allowed to be hot, but no note changes. They're both going to be standing. So on and so forth. So nothing else really changed other than potentially the microphones being hot. But supposedly, at least according to Trump in his post on True Social, it's finally the ABC September 10th debate is settled. Okay, they're not, but who the hell knows? It could change between now and then, because you know how the Democrats are. They don't want Kamala Harris to get in front of that television without having some sort of a teleprompter, some sort of notes, or some sort of communication in her ear, because she is absolutely horrible when she gets in front of people and speaking extemporaneously. And speaking of Harris and her flip-flopping arrangements, she was against the border wall. Guess what? Here in the Daily Caller, she actually is now supporting a border wall. If it weren't for the fact, and I'm going to be honest with you, as far as I'm concerned, yes, I am concerned about 2024. First of all, we're kind of showing, at least based off of the polling and some of the betting pools and so on and so forth, how tight of a race this actually is. But here's the thing, is that her flip-flopping is kind of like Joe Biden's plagiarizing back in when he ran the first couple of times. I don't even know when he ran, date-wise when he ran, but the mainstream media, which wasn't the sycophantic, or at least the obvious sycophantic followers of the Democrat Party as they are today, okay, but she is essentially in the same boat that Biden was in, because Biden had to drop out both previous runs for president because the mainstream media actually did their job. Okay? They actually did their job. And here she's doing the exact same thing. Everything that she is telling you right now that she is for, she was against in 2019 when she was running for president. Okay, up against Joe Biden before she embarrassingly dropped out before the first primary, not even receiving 1% of the votes. But here, she now apparently supports the border wall. She's now in favor of a border wall after being attacked repeatedly by former President Donald Trump for presiding over an unprecedented surge in illegal immigration as Biden administration's unofficial border czar, which she was, by the way. And prior to her second run for the presidency, Harris had called the border wall un-American, a stupid waste of money, and Trump's medieval vanity project. Well, now she apparently backs a bipartisan border bill proposed last February, which would require hundreds of millions of unspent public dollars to be spent on further construction of a border wall. And this is according to Axios, which is a left-wing outlet, by the way. So the office of Republican Oklahoma Senator James Langford, who is one of the lawmakers who negotiated for the bill, projected that the bill would spend $650 million on wall construction, a far cry from the $18 billion that Trump wanted for the border wall back in 2018. So yeah, once again, here she goes. She's the chameleon. You know, if I was talented, I would use some way. I would create a song based off of Karma Chameleon and call it Kamala Chameleon. Because that's literally what she does. She is a Kamala chameleon. She just wants to be whoever she wants to be, and for the things that she wants. She has no policy. She doesn't care. She doesn't care. None of this stuff that she's touting is what she's going to do anyway. All right. Well, that's it for me tonight, folks. Do me a favor. If you like my program and everything, make sure you head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account if you don't already have one. And regardless of whether you do or you sign up, make sure you hunt out the American Perspective channel. Hit that green follow button so you can be notified every time I go live. I will see you tomorrow night. It's Whiskey Wednesday, and I think, but I'm not entirely positive, but I think I have a pet of the week for tomorrow. I have to look. If not, go ahead and send in your pet of the week to fans at americanperspective.online to get it in there so that it's in the queue. But we will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Don't forget to hit those like buttons and thumbs up buttons on your way out. I do appreciate every single one of you. We will see you tomorrow night. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.